How's everybody doing today on this Saturday? You know me, it's the big guy here, Intercontinental Sports TV studio. And as we promised, this is going to be the first of a series of videos called Football 101. Let me just start out by saying that the NFL, or National Football League, has been around since 1920. But even before there was the NFL, football has been played in this country probably since at least maybe 1875. The game looked a lot different, was a lot slower. Heck, for years they didn't even throw what you call a forward pass. It was mostly running the ball. It probably resembled more like rugby than it did NFL football. But over the years, through people innovating and coming up with ideas, the game has changed a lot, but still the core concepts are the same. But like I said, this series will just help us outline things for the new fan who, like I said, may not understand how the game is played. So where would we like to start today? Where's the first point of interest?
We just want to find out, the team comprises of how many? About the players.
So how many players are on an NFL team?
Yes.
Okay, so an NFL team has 53 players on their team. Sometimes it might be a couple less depending on injuries or things like that. Depending on how many players they're carrying, but the full size for an NFL team is 53 players. Now, when they go into a game, they can only have 46 players active. So sometimes they have to strategize a little bit going into a game, figuring out which players are they going to leave on the bench and which ones are going to actually suit up and play in the game. So there's definitely some strategy involved in the coaches figuring out which players are more worthy to play that week. But sometimes it changes week to week. So there may be some players that might be active for one game, but maybe the next week they're not.
Okay. What about the pitch itself?
The NFL field.
Yeah, the field.
Right, exactly. Well, the NFL field is 120 yards completely. However, the actual playing surface that they're playing on is 100 yards. So you're probably asking, well, where's those other 20 yards? Those other 20 yards are 10 yards in each team's end zone. But we don't, like I said, we don't count those. Because once you cross the goal line and get in the end zone, you would be scoring a touchdown, so you don't need to gain any more yards.
So how many players is allowed to start the match?
Three phases of the game is you have offense, defense, and special teams. The special teams come in either after a touchdown, or maybe they're starting off a new half, they're kicking the ball off, or they're going to punt the ball, which is essentially saying they're giving possession of the ball back to the other team because they couldn't make any progress. You have 11 players on each side. So offense and defense will both have 11 players on the field.
Okay.
Now, sometimes in the middle, in between plays being called, sometimes there may be a miscommunication, and sometimes a team will have too many players on the field. They may have 12 players. If the refs spot that, that's going to be a penalty for having too many players on the field. But there's actually been times that there's been confusion where I've seen teams only have 10 players on the field because maybe players were confused about their assignments, who was going in, who was going out. But yes, offense and defense will have 11 players on the field.
Yeah, you're talking about, I think I heard something like offensive, defensive. What are the major positions of each players?
Obviously, the job of the offense is to go downfield and score points.
Okay.
Now, the ultimate goal would be to score a touchdown. If you score a touchdown, you cross the goal line and you get into the end zone, that is 6 points.
Okay.
Now, after that touchdown, you have an opportunity for more points. You could kick a field goal, and that would be an extra point for you, and you would get a total of 7 points. But you could also decide, I don't want to kick that field goal. I'm going to go for what's called a 2-point conversion. And that would essentially be like a regular play. You could either run the ball or you could throw the ball into the end zone. And if you get into the end zone, you would get 2 points instead of 1. So ultimately, you could go from either 6 points all the way up to 8 points, depending what you do. But most teams kick the extra point. In a close game, a team will go for a 2-point conversion.
Okay.
Would you like me to break down
Yeah,
what it looks like on one? Okay.
Yes.
So you want me to? We're going to start on offense. How about that? How does that sound? So it's a little crudely drawn, but you'll get the point of everything I wrote down. So I'm going to start all the way over here on the end. You see this WR. WR stands for wide receiver. Like I said, if you're new to the game, but you've seen some football, the wide receiver, his primary responsibility is to catch the ball that's being thrown by the quarterback. But sometimes on certain plays, the running back or a receiver, even if it's like what they call a trick play, can throw the ball. But the receiver, his primary responsibility is to catch the ball. Now I've got 2 receivers on this formation, but depending on what kind of personnel they put in, sometimes you might see 3 or 4 receivers on the field. Like I said, they're primarily responsible for catching the ball, but sometimes you'll even see this receiver, he might line up in the backfield behind the quarterback because the quarterback might actually hand him the ball and let him run the ball. But we'll go into more detail on that on another episode. Next, I'm going to move over here, and this TE stands for tight end. Now, the tight end, he's like another receiver, but he's usually a little bigger. He also catches the ball, but another big part of his job is blocking. You're going to have defenders coming down here, and he may go up and block a defender to give an opportunity for one of these receivers or even the running back to make a play. And the game's changing a lot. Tight ends are catching the ball a lot more than they used to, and they're getting bigger and faster. But if you have a tight end that can catch and block, that's a great thing to have. So they're very important. Sometimes they'll line up on that side, depending on what they're going to do that play. Next, we have, this is the offensive line. They're responsible for protecting the QB. If you've ever watched maybe a Baltimore Ravens game, you see Lamar Jackson. He's not your average QB. This guy's running around more than you probably want a QB to do, but he's so fast and athletic, he catches people off guard and can really, we've seen what he's done some teams, but these guys, their job is to protect him. So first we have the left tackle. I think he may be the most important beside the center. The left tackle, he protects the QB. Most of your QBs are right-handed. So if I'm throwing with my right hand, my peripheral vision, my side vision may be a little obscured. They're going to call that the blind side. So he is going to protect the QB's blind side. He needs to create like a wall. So if there's going to be a defender up here, he's going to create a wall. He needs to protect that guy. That's his main job. Beside him, you got a left guard. You see he's in there in the middle. He's responsible for blocking on running plays with the running back, but he's also should pass block. I mean, they're all important, but he's going to block defenders. Guy in the middle, the center. Now he's the guy you see in the middle, and he's like the captain of this line. He's in charge of making sure all the linemen are lined up correctly, they're in position, and he's going to hike the ball to the QB when the QB is ready for the ball. Sometimes it's very noisy in some of these stadiums, and it can be very loud. So he has to have a good relationship with this QB. He needs to really be locked in and know when the QB is ready for the ball, because we've seen at different times where maybe this center doesn't communicate well with the QB, and he hikes the ball too soon, and the QB drops it and fumbles it, and they lose the ball, and the defense picks it up. So the center, he needs to make sure all these guys are doing their jobs. Next to him, right guard, same thing as left guard. He should be able to block on passing plays and running plays. And then we have the right tackle. Now the right tackle may be a better job at run blocking, but he also needs to, be able to protect the QB as well. And then if it's a left-handed QB, he's going to be able to be more responsible than the left tackle, because if he's throwing with his left hand, his left arm, he's got to protect him. And then obviously we have the QB, quarterback. He's the main guy on offense. He's the guy you see throwing the ball, or in Lamar Jackson's case, running and throwing the ball. QB has a lot of options. He can throw a pass to the receiver. He can hand the ball off to the running back. The running back could come up here and he could hand it off to him, but the running back could also run out and the QB could also throw it to him. There's a lot of things the QB can do, and then obviously the QB, he could decide to run. He could decide to go up. It depends on what his skill set is. But the QB, obviously, he's the main guy, so he's the guy that keeps the offense going, and he's going to be the one trying to move the ball down the field. But he needs to be on the same page as his receivers, tight ends, everybody. And then, like I said, the running back, he's there. And then if the QB decides to run, the running back could also block for him. But that's your offense right there. So with that being said, I'm going to give you an idea what the defense looks like. So like I said, cornerback, he needs to cover this receiver. His main job is to make sure that receiver doesn't catch the ball. But as playing defense, if the cornerback catches the quarterback's pass, that's an interception. That's a turnover. So very important. These LBs, linebackers, they're kind of a mix between defensive linemen. They might be a little smaller, but they're roaming usually the middle of the field. Some of these guys might come down and try to get the quarterback, but mostly they're in coverage back there trying to protect this part of the field. They might be covering the tight end or some of these running backs coming out. Linebackers are very important, but we will get more into them another time. These two S's up there, it stands for safety. He's kind of like the cornerback, but he plays further back. He's protecting the top half of the field. So, and then finally, like I said, DE, defensive end. His job is to get past this left tackle, get to the QB. Defensive tackles, they're playing in the middle. They want to try to get by here, get to the QB or stop the run. Same thing with the other defensive end. He wants to get around and get to the QB. But these guys, the big guys, they're all trying to stop each other. Hopefully you learned something today. And like I said, show you that it's not that scary, but we're here to teach you. Thanks for tuning in to Football 101. We're going to see you next week. Make sure to like and subscribe.